Hello, and welcome to my first episode of ENTP Time. My name is JC, and in case it wasn't intuitive, I am an ENTP. This series has been a long time in the making, as in I've been thinking about doing like a series kind of like this for a long time, but I had like sort of doubts such as like, am I good enough? Like, can I get the point across clearly? Am I qualified to even talk about Myers-Briggs type indicator theory? Am I really knowledgeable enough? Like, am I going to be giving misinformation? I had a lot of these doubts, which is why I didn't start this series sooner, even though I had been thinking about it for a long time. But basically, what this series is going to entail is going to be a lot of me talking about the different cognitive functions, how they work together, how I see them in my friends, how I see them in myself, how you can identify them. Maybe I can help you learn how to type yourself if you don't know what your Myers-Briggs type is yet. And basically, it's going to be a lot of me learning throughout this process, and hopefully you too. And if there's ever anything that's like theoretically incorrect that I say or you disagree with, please leave a comment. I would love to know, and I want to just keep on learning and growing. And for me at least, like the more I talk, the more I learn. And it's called ENTP time, so I have myself a cup of tea. So if you see me sip on it once in a while, you know it's part of the brand. It has to happen. That's hot. Okay. Anyway, for those of you who are new to Myers-Briggs type indicator theory, basically once you delve in a little bit past just like the 4-letter code, like ENTP, it goes into cognitive functions. So if you already know that much, then like you can dive in. If you don't know about that, I might do future videos on like figuring out how you know what cognitive functions you have, or I could also put a link in the description of some of my good friends who've done many videos and threads on Twitter and all this stuff, and some good links and some blog posts, some books. I'll try to link all those later on, maybe not in this video, but maybe later on. But to dive in first, I think the function that I want to talk about today is, as an ENTP, my very first function, my dominant function is NE, which is extroverted intuition. So I have a friend who's an SE dominant, extroverted sensing dominant, and he finds it fundamentally hard to understand what NE is. So I thought that I would make a video and try to break it down and explain it to someone who might not have it in, their top 4 function slots. So to like start off, I want to say that it is an extroverted function. It's a perceiving function, so it has a lot to do with like picking up information from the environment, which is like a pretty stereotypical way to describe it. Some other stereotypes, which I'll start with, to describe NE are kind of like spontaneous, fun-loving, doesn't like to be tied down to one thing, new ideas, possibilities, procrastination. I've heard that one. I don't know if it's a big stereotype. So stuff like that. And something that I want to say about NE is that like for me it has like pushed me a lot towards like trying to find new ways to do stuff instead of sticking with like the way that is kind of commonly accepted. But what I think a big part of it is like being able to see very many paths of what can happen. So I think NE is full of endless possibilities, and I think that this comes across, for me at least, when I'm talking to people or when I get to know people. I kind of think like if I meet someone, I'm not quick to like make snap decisions and judgments and like place them in a category. I'm more of like, oh, this is what you're like. You're on a spectrum, and as I get to know you more and more, I think that you become more and more interesting, because I personally think that people are like endless possibilities, and the more you get to know them, the more there is, which is kind of, I guess, intuitive. Most people probably think that, so I'm not that special, but I do think that, and I think that as you get to know them, part of someone being endlessly interesting is the fact that they have a future that can go in certain directions. And I think that that's a big part of where NE comes in. NE is really good at being able to see those different futures and those different paths. So for example, if I meet someone, when I first start talking to them, even on like the first interaction, I could see different ways that like this can go. So as compared to like maybe an SE dominant who meets someone and they act a certain way and they're like, oh, this person will be this kind of friend. Like they kind of decide that earlier on. That's also a stereotype. So if you disagree with that, go ahead and disagree. Like that's just what I think. But for me, it's more of like I meet someone and I'm like, oh, they could be this, and this, depending on if we do this, and this, and depending on if I say this, and this, and this, and depending on what they say, which could be this, and this. So you kind of get the point, right? Like there's like a stream that comes out and like it diverges into many different pathways, which is kind of what I think NE is like, except you're standing at the top of the stream and you can see it. Like you're at the top of the hill and you can see all the directions that it goes. Which is why I think NE can be very influential in that we can see which way a person can go pretty clearly, which I think is tied to our SI function very strongly, which I guess I'll go into when I make an SI video. But like we could really see that, and when we see that, it's easier for us to push someone in a certain direction to help them succeed or to not. I think the ENFPs tend to push people more, in directions that they see will be beneficial compared to ENTP with their FI in their polar spot and might not care as much necessarily, for lack of me finding a better way to say it. It's more of like ENTPs, I think, like to use their FE and their NE and their TI together to like kind of experiment on people, like figure out what kind of responses they'll have. So sometimes, at least for me, when I was younger and less mature, I would, push people in directions that maybe weren't the best because I kind of wanted to see what would happen, which, morally might not be the best thing, but that, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's like an ENTP thing. I don't know. I don't want to like confuse myself with all ENTPs for sure. This tea is so good. Anyway, so yeah, with NE, I definitely see that. Another thing that like I hear a lot about NE users is kind of like their lack of ability to stay focused and to follow through with something to the end. Personally, I guess I can see myself having struggled with that, but I think that, at least for me, as I developed my SI a lot more and developed my FE and my TI, I guess all my functions, as I developed, I like started to learn more about my motivations for why I do stuff. And once I have a clearer motivation, it's a lot easier for me to actually get stuff done. And something that I found really beneficial is just like pairing up with someone who has TE as their first or second function, because TE, at least in my opinion, is very effective. Like they will get stuff done and like they will do it well. So for me, who just has like a lot of ideas, I'm an idea generator, and it's kind of hard for me to like always implement everything. And like I'm kind of all about efficiency. So if at some point like my idea is great, but then like it's not that efficient, I might be like, okay, peace, compared to like a TE user might take my good idea. They'll choose, of course, because they'll see like the ideas that are kind of ridiculous. They'll choose my good ideas and then they will actually effectively get stuff done. So I see this a lot with one of my professors. We redeveloped the lab this past fall, and like he obviously had most of the ideas. He had like all the ideas, but like I would come up with like different ways to make things more efficient because I don't want to do it in a way that takes longer just because someone said to. And then what he'll do is he'll like actually implement what I say, and he'll like make it happen. Compared to me, I might just have the ideas and say it, and then I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. Yeah, so he actually like implements it. Oh, and also if you hear stuff, like whatever, it's like I live in a dorm, so people don't live in the hallway. They walk in the hallway, so there might be some noise, but bear with me on that, please. Yeah, so continuing on, I guess, on my NE ramble, I forgot what I was talking about. Efficiency versus effectiveness. Yes, so that's kind of, yeah, I guess that was the whole point on that. Something that I do that I don't know if anyone else actually does, probably, because like, I mean, I don't think that I'm like super unique or anything, but something that I do is I was really into like this anime when I was like in high school or junior high. It's called No Game No Life, and basically like the girl main character, she like can see everything. Like I don't know how to explain it. It's like when she's analyzing, she could actually like see everything, right? So I like tried like trying to do something like that. So then I would do it with like my possibilities thing. So for example, if someone says something to me, there's a drop down menu of replies that I can make to them. So what I tend to do is I tend to choose something that will catch them off guard and is out of the box, right? So they're kind of ranked in order of like either like likeliness that someone would say it, so then I choose something from like near the bottom of the list, or I do it in order of like something I would say. And then it's like kind of like a drop down menu. And like I could picture this drop down menu. And once I say something, I could see the drop down menu from what I said to what they could possibly say. And as I kept developing this, like I tend to be pretty scarily accurate, as in like at least in like the top 5 options in my drop down, they almost always answer according to what I expect. Which I'm not saying like I'm a psychic or whatever, it's just kind of like people tend to become a bit more predictable to me, which is why for me I get really interested with someone who's more mysterious or doesn't react the way that I would expect them to. That really excites me and makes me want to figure them out. Yeah, not to say that like people who I've known for a long time who become quote unquote predictable aren't interesting. It's just, I don't really know where I was going with that. But yeah. Okay, anyway, I can't really think of anything specific right now to continue talking about extroverted intuition, but I will probably make another video about NE at some point soon, because I didn't really cover much of what I wanted to talk about. I don't even know what I wanted to talk about, but in the future videos I'll try to make more of a plan. But this is just like my video that I'm putting out there because I've been delaying this project for a long time. I keep saying I want to do it, I keep thinking I want to do it, and I just haven't done it. So this first video is just, I'm putting it out there, and then we'll see what happens from here. And if you have any suggestions or comments or roasts, whatever, like leave them in the comments, send me a message, do something. Yeah, and a lot of this is for my own personal growth as well as hopefully yours. So I hope that you can join me on this journey of all of our collective growth. Yeah, so thanks for tuning in. I totally just screwed that up. Anyway, thanks for tuning in with me on this ENTP time, and I hope that you can join me on my next video.